Okay, we're here for a live chat this evening. I've got one here from Jim, and we're going to take these just the way that you sent them to me. Jim asks, what can we do about property taxes? He's 59, and he and his wife bought a home where they paid $2,700 for property taxes. Now they pay, that was 22 years ago, now they pay $8,900, so that's more than 3 times the amount of property tax. So let me say, Jim, you are exactly right. We're the number one property tax state in the country. 23% of all the revenue for the state of Maine comes out of property taxes. It is unfair. It is not the way it's supposed to work. We're not supposed to keep paying rent forever to the government for something that we bought. So what are you going to do? The first thing you do is you slash all these mandates down to towns and counties that are coming from the state. You get rid of that, and then there's not as much spending required at the state, at the local level and at the county level. So if that first thing you do, therefore, is lower the costs so that you don't have to have high property taxes because you don't have high spending. The second thing you do is look for efficiencies. We are now spending, for example, although a huge chunk of those property taxes go into schools, we're spending twice the amount of money on schools that we did in the year 2000, so 25 years ago, and our actual outcomes now are literally night and day. Back then, when we were spending less and we were efficient and thoughtful about what we taught, we actually ended up being in the best in the country. We were in the top 5 in the country for years, and now we're number 49 out of 50. So go back and look at the efficiencies. Third thing you do is exempt seniors. Someone who has spent their entire life paying for their house should not continue to pay rent to the government for something they spent a lifetime buying, paying for, and getting rid of that mortgage. That's also true, by the way, when it comes to rent right now. Landlords pay more in property taxes, so rent is unaffordable. Young people right now on a monthly basis make about $200 less on average than the cost of renting a place, which is why so many have to stay with parents and others. So what you do is you get affordability back, you slash the costs that are happening down here at the local level that are unnecessary, you put back in place common sense measures, you exempt seniors, exempt veterans, and get us back to a point where we were at maybe 20, 25 years ago when we had affordable everything and we had property taxes that weren't a nightmare and kept us up at night. So it's a very doable thing. There are other bases, and I'll answer some of that in some other questions. Sherry in Brunswick, and Sherry asks, will you support our Maine girls, and will you invite ICE deportations? Yes, exclamation point, yes, exclamation point. So I am a girl dad. My daughter's 23, and my God, if she had been forced into a situation where she had to be she was a cross-country runner, as I was, if she had been forced into a situation where she had to go into a shower with a boy or a young man and had to be subject to that, or privacy of her life in her day-to-day activities in school, in a bathroom, her dignity was insulted like that, I would have been right in the face of that school principal. And I'll tell you, I am very, very disappointed in Michael Burnham. I went to high school with Michael Burnham in Winthrop High School and his wife Tina, and I could not be just feel more betrayed and more disgusted with the decisions he's made. I understand he's probably trying to keep his paycheck, but you know what? Girls matter more than that. And I am disgusted with Mills. You don't go down to Washington and fight against girls' civil rights. That's like the civil rights, that's like the governors in the Deep South after the 1964 civil rights law, where they fought in order to keep black civil rights from being given. Instead of fighting against girls' civil rights, I will go to Washington, support President Trump to the nines, ask his support for us, buck up the amount of money we get in our education system while remaking it to be efficient and accurate and full of good outcomes. And by God, I will protect the girls of this state every day of the week, bar none. Anything happens, you call the governor's office and we will weigh in and make it right. And in terms of ICE, look, I worked with law enforcement. I was a crime fighter all my life. I love ICE. I love DEA. I love, frankly, all of the field agents. We have a number of them here, and I won't go into that in detail right now, but I'm close friends with a lot of folks who are in federal law enforcement here. We need to triple the law enforcement presence here. We need to invite ICE in and literally wire brush all of these illegal aliens out of the state. They were not invited here except by Democrats like Mills. They do not belong here. We don't invite felons and gangs and Dominican traffickers, who, by the way, many of them are illegal, and Chinese traffickers and grow houses, many of them are illegal, and Mexican Sinaloa cartels. We do not invite them here, okay? They are immediately disinvited, and when I'm governor, they will be physically disinvited out. So yeah, ICE will be, hey, I may give ICE an office next door to mine wherever these offices in Augusta are. So yeah, ICE will be fine, and we're going to get the bad guys out of this state. We're going to return this state to average Maine citizens, just like me. I grew up here, just across where I'm sitting right now, and the Maine I grew up in is the one I want back, and I hope it's the one you want back, and it is the one I'm going to fight for. So please, by the way, join me in that fight. Okay, next question is Matt, and Matt asks about what you're going to do about veteran homelessness. This is actually an easy one. We are going to wire brush the illegal aliens out of this state. They were not invited here except by the Democrats. There are more than 5,000 here. Janet Mills and her cadre with Bellows and Pingree and all the rest of them want to bring another 75,000 illegals here. No, that's number one. No. Illegals are not coming into the state, and those here are going to be escorted out of the state. What does that do? It opens up housing, like the housing in Brunswick that was intended for veterans, okay? Instead of going to the veterans, many of whom ended up under Casco Bridge and then were shooed out by Democrat leaders who said they couldn't stay under the bridge after they'd taken away the housing that probably was going to be theirs in Brunswick. What did they do with that Brunswick housing? They gave it to illegal aliens for 2 years. And they gave them EBT cards. We now know many of the EBT cards are being swapped for drugs. Is that the state we want? No. We want homeless veterans to have homes. We want veterans to have the homestead exemption. We want veterans not to have to pay high property taxes. Why? Because they signed a page 2 and went away to die for us if necessary. Okay, think about that. We owe a moral debt to veterans. The last thing in the world a veteran should be is homeless. They literally protected our homes with their lives. Does it get any more basic than that? So, Matt, the answer is we need to find ways to make sure every homeless veteran in the state has a home. And more importantly, all veterans get to keep their homes. They don't, as I said a moment ago, they don't end up being put in a position where they keep paying rent to the government for something they fought for. Some of them, many of them, got wounded and had to come back and think a lot about what they did. And they still have to pay taxes for something that they really earned by being for us. So veterans come first in my book. In a state of 1.4 million, we've got about 100,000. I will stand up and work for every one of them. I will make sure that our veterans' homes, both the private ones and the public ones supported by VA, are doing what they're supposed to do. And frankly, if they're not delivering services to you or the cost of those services is too much, you can count on me to go straight to the Trump administration and say, one-on-one, mano a mano, right there in the Veterans Administration, I need to have you support my Maine vets. So there's that. Okay, Gil from Augusta asks if I will implement many of the things Donald Trump has implemented nationally here. The answer is yes. So let me be specific. We just saw an audit here in the state that showed $2.1 billion of bureaucratic waste and fraud and contracts by this Democrat administration being given to their friends and family. That's not a joke. Go back at the actual words are friends and family. They've given sole source contracts in the amount that was the entire state budget about 10 years ago. They've given them to friends and family and sole sourced and all kinds of absolute garbage done with your money and mine. Never mind they're spending it on things we don't want, but they're giving it to people that are their buddies. Okay, so first thing is we need a Doge for Maine. We need efficiency. We need to go through with a good attorney general. And that means, by the way, we need to win the governorship and the House and the Senate. We need to win walking away. Okay, this needs to be a walk-off grand slam so that we can then have the attorney general and go back and look at all of these things they've done to this state and then sweep out all the inefficiencies, cut this budget dramatically. Yes, get rid of the income tax. Yes, lower property taxes. All of that is in the bargain, is in the plan. I mean, as sure as I'm sitting here today, that's the plan. And we're gonna pull every tooth to get there, okay? But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to get back to basics. And we are so far off basics. And then the other part of the question was, am I going to try to win us the first district? And the answer is yes. Do you know that nobody thought that Donald Trump could win all 7 of those swing states? A lot of people didn't think he could win the election this cycle, never mind the popular vote. Common sense is unbelievably persuasive. And if I talk with a lot of folks on the left, and after about an hour of having my ear bent by them and telling them why, they're telling me why woke is not the right word and all these things they think they've got right, I ask them some very basic questions. Are your taxes really abnormally high? Is it easy for you to pay all those taxes? Do you like the fact that we've gone from 5 overdoses in the state to 10,000, and we have drug traffickers all over this state making lives for our kids and even ourselves unsafe? Do you like the fact that we're in a situation where our education outcomes have gone from the best in the nation to the worst in the nation? Whatever your other politics, that stuff doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense in the 2nd district where I live, and it doesn't make sense in the 1st district. So, to your question, can we win the 1st district? We sure as hell ought to try, and I believe in time, yes, we will turn this entire state back to Norman Rockwell's America, back to common sense, back to hard work and good pay, back to safe places for our kids and grandkids. Of course we can do this. People say it can't be done. I say, screw that. Of course it can be done. It can be done if you and I work toward that end. That's how everything in life works. You envision it, you believe with all your heart in it, and you work as if the entire enterprise depended on you and you alone. And that's why I don't sleep much, because I think it depends on me and me alone, but I want you to think that too. So yeah, we're going to fix that. Okay, the next question, and I really appreciate these questions. You're not going to get to know me unless you ask me. And God willing, I'll give you the straightest answer I can give you. And if it's not straight enough, then call me back or text me and we'll figure it out the next time and I'll get it more detailed. Next question is about what you're going to do to lower the cost of housing. Okay, so let's get at the problem itself without admiring it too much. Seniors are being pushed out of their homes. They're actually being pushed even out of residential facilities that they usually had. We also have young people now desperately trying to get homes, but they can't put down money for a mortgage. They can't even put down money for rent, which is why a lot of them have to stay with family. Why? Because the median income in the state of Maine, meaning affordability, the median income is $200 lower than the median rental price for property, particularly affecting those under the age of 35. So what do? You slash the budget. You get this budget back to what it was 10 years ago. No kidding. That's what you do. You take out all the waste, the fraud, the $2 billion in contracts to friends and buddies. You get them all the hell out of this budget. You get us back to having the things we need, the things the state government has to do, but not the things that they just want to do because they have control over your money. And then you cut taxes dramatically. You not only cut property taxes, which in turn reduce the rents because landlords then are paying less property taxes, but you cut income taxes so that those people who currently are $200 shy every month now have that money back because it's not being taken from them. When I was growing up and I started working at 12, no big deal. Lots of people did. But, and I was cleaning and fixing toilets for the next 5 years. That was a big thing, part of my everyday life that I had to do. I learned about plumbing. I learned about carpentry. I later started, working with a contractor. I worked with a lot of World War II vets. I didn't have massive stuff coming out of my paycheck, okay? I got $40 a week when I started. I thought I was rich as could be. But you know what? I got to keep all of it. All of it. So we need to get back to the idea that the money you earn belongs to you. It does not belong to the government. Period. And then gradually housing becomes more affordable because we also put the trades back into the schools. So now we end up with people out there building homes. If you have more people building homes, then the average cost per home goes down. The speed at which that house gets built goes up. We kick these stupid Chinese illegal traffickers out of these homes. There's a 300 homes right off the bat right there. You kick the illegal aliens out of the housing that they're occupying, and there comes some housing again for, it's a many pieces in one puzzle. But at the end of the day, you got to focus on it and you got to believe in it and you got to bring the housing prices down and affordability back. And that's what I'm dedicated to, or I wouldn't be in the race. Okay, what's next? We've got Tim. Tim asks me about where I come out on the Second Amendment. Tim, what a great question. Please ask it every day of the week. I grew up as an NRA safe hunter. I was an NRA safe hunter when I was 12, right across where I'm sitting right now. We actually learned NRA safe hunter training in our elementary school. In 6th grade, I think, is when we first started getting it. And I don't want to say I played with guns. I used guns well as a Boy Scout, 22 shotguns. I would go with my friends and we'd throw clays. I used guns very easily as a child. The same way that I got taught how to use, taught everything. Taught how to use a snowmobile responsibly. Taught how to ice fish. Taught how to dress for weather. Taught how to drive an automobile. Taught how to not disappoint my mother in doing something that I shouldn't have done, okay? All of those things that you learn, the same way you learn firearms, okay? You learn how to store ammunition, take care of your firearm, you learn how to be safe with it, because God knows none of us wanted to do harm to anybody else. And actually, we were trained in such a way, the NRA does this, we were trained in such a way that we felt that we really needed to be responsible with firearms. That's kind of how we looked at the privilege of using them. So whether it was a rifle or a shotgun, and these days I have sidearms. I in the Navy trained for 10 years on a 9mm. And, I have some other sidearms. The bottom line is I'm a gun guy. I'm a member of NRA and Maine gun owners. And I think that the Second Amendment is just absolutely vital. The First Amendment and the Second Amendment were the first and they were the second because those were the most important rights. You needed the freedom to speak freely, insult people if you wanted. Go ahead and insult me. I get it every day online. It's okay. It's your right. I needed the right to be able to worship as I wanted. Can you imagine a governor telling you can't go to church and you have to wear masks everywhere you go, and you can't even go to Thanksgiving? Well, anyway, First Amendment vital, Second Amendment vital, because if you don't have a Second Amendment, you don't have a First Amendment. It's plain and simple. We have our guns to protect our rights. Just as simple as that. So if I'm governor, by God, let's get some gun sales up in this state, okay? I'm not in the business of trying to keep people from having their guns. I will get rid of any red flag laws that exist here, and you will not see those come up in 4 years or 8 years if I'm governor and we control the legislature. The idea of taking people's guns away will be something that comes out of the storybooks about the old Soviet Union, okay? Not going to happen on my watch. I am a gun guy. I'm very happy to be a gun guy. Nothing special about it. I got a rake, I got a snow shovel, and I got some guns. So there you go. Okay, here's the next one. And this one I am glad for getting as well. Thank you very much. I hear this question, explain your relationship with the Bush family. So here's the bottom line. I have no relationship with the Bush family, okay? I was 10 years in naval service in uniform, and I worked in 2 White Houses, Ronald Reagan's for back and forth for 3 years, and for less than a full year in the Bush White House. I have no relationship with the Bush family. And here's a little spoiler alert. When you are on orders, when you get an opportunity to work and make a difference, I encourage you to step up and do it. That's all I did. I grew up here in rural Maine. I got an opportunity, an incredible opportunity to go get an education. And after I got that education, I got an opportunity to work in 2 White Houses for the longer tenure of years in the Reagan White House, okay? I thought that was amazing experience. I then got a chance to go become a naval intelligence officer and help protect my country. I loved every minute of that. I come from a family that has done that. That has nothing to do with mediocre or rhino or Bush stuff, okay? It's not me, okay? I am just a plain old patriot. So what you see is what you get. And that's the way my whole family is. That's why my father's buried at Arlington. My grandfather's buried at Arlington. That's why more than 100 of my family fought in the American Revolution. Okay, I am just a plain old everyday patriot. So when you're called as a patriot on orders or with an opportunity to go serve your country, that's what you do. Okay, you don't say no, you don't say maybe, you don't say I don't like this about who you are. I didn't work on anything that was controversial. I worked primarily on counter narcotics, law enforcement, trying to get this country safe again. And then when I worked for Gingrich for 5 years, I was doing oversight and I wrote Plan Colombia, and I went down to Colombia and Bolivia and Peru, and I worked day and night to get rid of the big drug traffickers. And if I said their names, you'd know them, okay? And then finally, after being in the private sector and starting a company that I've run for 25 years, they asked me out of that company to go try to train the Iraqi police and the Afghan police, make Plan Colombia finally produce peace, which it did, and they won a Nobel Prize for it, by the way, and try to bring peace over in Kosovo. When you are ordered to do something for your country, I mean, remember John Kennedy, not a Republican, but he did have tax cuts and he was a Navy guy. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Simple as that. That's what I did. So I got no relationship with the Bush family, but I am a patriot, and I will never walk away from being a patriot. And when I was in uniform, I didn't agree with everything that happened, but I was there. I signed my page 2, and I was ready. Okay, a great message here from Kevin, who says, if the illegal marijuana grow houses are as common as they are, why isn't this administration taking them down? Gosh, I mean, you and I can both surmise, let me say it that way. When I am governor, one of my first executive orders, and I will have a stack as thick as Donald Trump's was, is to bring ICE in here, DEA in here, re-empower the state police, up-fund them, increase their pay, increase patrols across the northern part of the state, increase the enforcement of our laws and of federal laws in the south of the state. These illegal Chinese grow houses are manned by illegal aliens from China, most of whom cannot speak the language, many of whom are supposed to not be here. And they're certainly not supposed to be growing illegal marijuana, many times having it sprinkled with fentanyl, getting out onto our streets. Part of the reason why we're losing 40 to 70 kids a month is this fentanyl shows up everywhere. It shows up in real sort of obvious places, and it shows up on marijuana that it shouldn't show up on. So I'm trying to tell you right now, these grow houses need to be taken out on day one. And I will work in an interagency way. That is to say, I'm going to go down, we'll talk to Pam Bondi, I will talk to Homeland, I will talk to DEA. I am very close to leadership of DEA right now. We will get them up here and we will get these grow houses out of the state of Maine. And we're going to send a message, by the way, to China, to the Dominican Republic, to those trafficking groups, to the Mexicans and the Sinaloa cartel. We're going to send a message to the gangs that are here. And the message is, you can be bad guys if you want, but you're not going to be bad guys in the state of Maine. We are going to take you out of the state of Maine. We're going to get the illegal aliens out of this state. We're going to get the big drug trafficking organizations out of this state. And for those that are addicted, those who are suffering right now from addiction because they get caught in the vortex, we're going to ramp up effective drug treatment. Instead of 315 beds for a state of 1.4 million, are you kidding me? What kind of bullshit is that? That's not saving anybody's lives. We need to save those lives, get everybody on a get well, stay well plan. This state can be incredibly healthy and prosperous and low tax and low crime. You just have to believe it. You have to envision it, believe it, and fight for it. And that's what I'm doing right now. And that's what I'm asking you right now. Please work with me, do it. So yeah, good question. We will get rid of them immediately. And the answer to your question is they're not doing it because they don't have the will to do it. They don't want them out of here, or they'd be out of here. Okay. Last question for this week from Susan Ann. And she asks, what are you going to do for the elderly so they can stay in their homes? A question similar to one earlier, but I will answer it as succinctly as I can. We are going to give older Mainers an exemption so they don't have to pay the kinds of property taxes they're paying right now. We're going to slash the burdens on towns and counties that have been imposed like barnacles on the bottom of a ship. Okay, they've been imposed for the last 30 years, but the last 7 and 6.5 in particular. They have ramped up the costs on older Mainers. So we're going to get property taxes down. We're going to get the burdens on their day-to-day affordability down. We're going to get rid of the taxes currently levied on pharmacies, and in particular the ones that naturally get passed on to anybody that has prescription drugs. And by the way, who has prescription drugs? Lots and lots of older Mainers have prescription drugs, and we are the oldest population in the country. So we have to protect our elderly. They have to be able to stay in their homes. If they need support in their homes, we'll figure out how to get that. But they have to be able to live in the home they spent their entire life buying. They do not have to keep paying rent. They should not have to keep paying rent to the government for something they bought years ago with incredible hard work. So we will also get the illegal aliens out of the state and free up, they're in 5,000 units right now. Let's free up all those units. We also will disinvite the 75,000 that Mills has invited in. They're not coming here, not on my watch. And then we will also get these Chinese grow houses out so that there's more of that housing available. We'll make sure that the incentives for builders of small houses and of modest-sized houses are there, so the regulations aren't killing them so that they can't build these things. And we will leverage state power down to the local level so that businesses that are trying in places like Bangor and Portland and elsewhere don't have to be suffocated by anti-business policies. If those cities are going to get the benefit of the state support that they get, they need to start supporting their own citizens, getting the regulations out, the housing up, the affordability back, and allowing seniors to stay in their homes. It's really as simple as that. So it is a fight. This stuff is like rewriting a tax code. I went through the whole budget line by line. It's a bit of a mess, but it can be reverse engineered, and that is exactly what we're going to do. I'm in this for one reason only. That's to win and then save the state of Maine. Make it safe, make it affordable, bring back the common sense that we all grew up with, and stop all the nonsense. Okay, we'll talk to you soon again. Bye-bye.